I bet you didn't know that unclogging your airbrush with your mouth is called Nurgle's mouthwash. Welcome back to Nurgle's November, the only month where infection counts as devotion and mold is a sign of divine favor. Today, we're not just talking about plagues on a world or corrupted space marines, we're talking about the moment Grandfather Nurgle himself pushes through the veil and lets his garden spill into real space. When Nurgle invades, it's not with fire and fury, but with warm, sweet rain, crawling rivers, and laughter that echoes through the lungs of the dying. His diseases don't conquer planets, they convert them. Demons bloom like flowers, oceans ferment, and entire cities become one giant pulsating organism, all while the Death Guard march in reverence behind their Lord of Decay. So grab your hand sanitizer, light a candle for your immune system, and prepare to witness what happens when the warp's most cheerful god of rot decides to say hello to real space.
Within the Warhammer 40K lore, the Immaterium is an inconceivable dimension that is not restricted by the laws of reality. It exists in tangent with reality, but doesn't have to abide by the same rules of time and space. It is the home of the super powerful warp entities known as the Chaos Gods, and just like the Immaterium, the Chaos Gods are impossible to comprehend through the minds of a biological being that evolved outside of the warp. One of the most popular questions we get asked is, what would it be like if a Chaos God invaded real space? The true nature of an invasion by one of these otherworldly beings is extremely difficult to guess at, considering that it has never happened in the history of 40k. However, based on thousands of demonic incursions recorded by the Imperium, we can get a pretty good assumption as to what it would be like if a Chaos God actually invaded the Milky Way galaxy. Out of the four Chaos Gods, today we will focus on Grandfather Nurgle, the Lord of Pestilence and the God of Disease and Entropy. Like all other Chaos incursions that have occurred throughout the galaxy, Nurgle's invasion would require some form of summoning ritual. Think of this as a way to entice the Chaos God to leave his chaotic garden in the warp and convince him to step foot into real space. This type of work would fall in the laps of the Chosen of Nurgle, all of those cultists that gleefully praise their benevolent patron and would gladly go to extreme lengths to lay out a vomit-stained red carpet for Grandfather Nurgle's arrival. Nurgle worshippers throughout the entire galaxy would accomplish this by turning as many planets into disease-filled petri dishes, overflowing with the ailments of Grandfather Nurgle. Entire sectors would bubble and pulse with the corruptive powers of Grandfather Nurgle. From zombie plague to Nurgle's rot, all of these diseases of the Lord of Pestilence would grow and flourish before the god would enter the material world. Not only is the spread of his diseases a way to make Papa Nurgle smile, but it also serves the purpose of cultivating new followers. You see, Grandfather Nurgle is the most rewarding Chaos God. His main blessing is escape from pain and death, and this is why it's so easy for him to have biological beings in real space fall victim to Nurgle's embrace. Planets infested with coughing and feverish inhabitants would slowly turn to Nurgle in order to avoid their inevitable death. This means that even if one infected follower of Nurgle enters a planetary system, he doesn't have to preach or fight in order to turn people towards the worship of his patron. Within weeks, sometimes even days, the corruption of Nurgle will take hold, and all the Lord of Disease simply needs to do is sweep in and promise eternal life for the slowly dying. Once these systems are firmly in his grasp, Nurgle will begin his transformation of a twisted realm in real space. From the decaying bodies of his liberated souls, rot flies will crawl out and begin work on turning the hive cities of man into luscious gardens of pestilence, with all manner of demonic beasts contributing to the endless cycle of decay. The populations of would-be defenders would simply lay down their weapons in delight for their patron, as he is responsible for their everlasting life. Unlike the other Chaos Gods, the arrival of Grandfather Nurgle will be known and even celebrated by entire sectors long before he steps into reality. Countless races will sing their praise before Nurgle's massive form rolls into reality. Their sacrifice is a joyous endeavor. For the majority of the Imperium, the days leading up to the god's arrival will seem no different than any other time in history. In a galaxy consumed by war, the massive uprisings and pandemics being experienced all throughout the galaxy would be no different than the regularly scheduled paranoia and chaos. However, for the few Imperials directly affected by Nurgle's infections, the seriousness of the matter would be all too real. Whichever segmentum experiences the first wave of the omens and demonic incursions will sadly be ignored by the Imperial High Command and the High Lords of Terra, as the individuals not suffering from the plague will more than likely deem these warnings as false paranoia. Infighting between the High Lords that believe the warnings and those that are too ignorant to see the true danger would deprive the Imperium from organizing a proper defense. Capitalizing on the Imperium's stagnation, the most powerful servants of Nurgle, these are the Plague Marines and the Demon Princes, will mobilize and begin preparation for their patron's arrival, but also for the wave of destruction that will follow as the entire conquest of the galaxy commences. Like all other demonic incursions, a warp portal must be opened in order to allow the chaotic ether that is the Immaterium to pass through the veil of reality. Portals can be as small as a Psyker's head, and as big as a cosmic tear in the fabric of space. For Grandfather Nurgle, his gate would have to rival the size of the Eye of Terror. Similar to how Slaanesha's birth destroyed the core worlds of the Eldari Empire, the arrival of the Lord of Pestilence would consume most disease-ridden planets at the center of Nurgle's cult's domain. This means trillions of loyal followers of the god would be exterminated upon the arrival of Nurgle, their energy being used as sustenance for the massive Chaos God's hunger for souls. Once in real space, Nurgle's form will take on a similar appearance to his greater demons, the Great Unclean Ones. These monsters are squat and mountainous, covered in rotting flesh and open sores that weep foul rivers of pus. Hot ropes of intestines drip out of huge tears in their enormous, bloated, and distended bellies. This horrific girth is supported by two impossibly small and atrophied-looking legs, and their large, bulbous heads are crowned by enormous, stag-like antlers. To a mortal's eyes, these greater demons of Nurgle are undoubtedly the foulest of all the demonic servants of the ruinous powers. Fly-blown, maggot-ridden innards spilling into view through the tears and gashes in his swollen belly as he lumbers forward. Clusters of pus are always erupting from his hide, birthing small swarms of giggling Nurglings, noxious juices seeping from dozens of infected sores, leaving a glistening trail of mucus in the Great Unclean One's wake. However, the sheer size of the god will be massive, large enough to block out entire suns. Nurgle will joyfully float in space like a massive planetoid being surrounded by a nebula of pestilence. Clouds of putrid miasma with rotflies the size of battle barges will dart in and out of his toxic atmosphere, permeating from his surroundings. Like the tendrils of the Tyranid Hive Fleets, Nurgle's armies would shoot out to infect sector after sector. For some of these places, the corruption would have already been taking place, and for others, a desperate battle fought not only in open battlefields, but at a microscopic level would take place, as the virus and poisons of Nurgle wage war against the defender's immune system. Warp storms would engulf entire sectors, as Nurgle's pestilence blocks out the psychic beacon that is the Astronomicon. It is only when the Lord of Decay is fully within real space that the Imperial defenders will take action. On countless battlefields throughout the galaxy, Imperial Guard regiments will fight alongside Skitarii cohorts and Space Marine chapters, as the lands of the Emperor slowly decay and wither. The weakest forces will succumb to the influence of Nurgle, while the rest will be butchered and serve as fertilizer for the Lord of Disease's endless gardens of bile and rot. A few Imperial forces will succeed in pushing back the forces of Nurgle, just like they did during the Plague Wars, but ultimately the sheer size of the incursion that was allowed to fester would be too much, and the Imperium, all the way up to the Emperor's palace, would bubble and pop with the pestilence of the great god Nurgle. At the foot of the Golden Throne, it will be revealed how the decaying body of the Corpse Emperor had been fueling the Lord of Entropy all along. The Emperor's will to live at the cost of his own rotting corpse served as a bountiful treat for Grandfather Nurgle. Other Xeno empires will fall as well. The Orcs and their incredible biology will eventually create a disease so powerful and potent it will not only wipe out the Greenskins, but also any other race, like the Tau and the Tyranids. As for the Eldari, who rely on the enslaved goddess Isha, will finally fall to Nurgle, and Isha would more than likely be killed by Nurgle now that he has a shot at control of the entire galaxy. For those few souls that believe they can kill the Chaos God now that he has a real body, they will sadly be mistaken, as Nurgle's incredible power would easily destroy an entire battle fleet with a simple cough from his bloated throat. No being, not even the Emperor, could kill Grandfather Nurgle. There is one surprising positive outcome to Nurgle taking over the galaxy. As a god of entropy, Nurgle would not allow the galaxy to ever truly die. Every single inhabitant would rest assured that their patron god would bless them and their world with eternal decaying life.
And that's my assumption of what it would be like for Nurgle to invade real space. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are enjoying Nurgle's November. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.